Hello and welcome to Wayports Racing League Season 2, Round 9 of Division 1 in Live for Speed. Blackwood GP Reverse. The second time we're at Blackwood GP this season. I'm Peter Butcher and I'm joined in the commentary box once again by Adam Brown. Good afternoon, Adam.
Good afternoon, Pete. Yeah, it's going to be fun. We've got a bit of a switcheroo here. We did this earlier in the season in the normal direction, and now we're doing the same track in reverse. Mariano won at this track a few weeks ago in the normal configuration. It'll be interesting to see what happens this time around, as Mariano's no longer leading the championship.
Yeah, we'll cover that in just a few minutes. Everything has changed in the Teams and Drivers' Championship, Adam. And ahead of this round, with only 2 rounds to go in Season 2, everything has changed. And what will happen in these 2 races that we've got coming up today? Let's just refresh ourselves. Blackwood GP should be familiar to most viewers and most of the drivers, but today we're going around it in the other direction. Blackwood Grand Prix Reversed is a 3.3 kilometre, 2.1 mile track with 9 corners. We have 10 minutes of qualifying, which has just started, and then in around about 15 minutes we will have 14 laps of racing with the mandatory pit stop that we have here in Wayports Racing League. All right, Adam, let's have a look at the car. We know we're all pretty familiar with it, but the XF GTI in Live for Speed, one of the demo cars, free in the free version of the game, is a 1.3 litre inline-4 front-engine car, front-wheel drive, with 115 brake horsepower, weighing in just under a tonne. It's a tricky beast around Blackwood.
Yes, indeed. Blackwood again. Got to be very careful on these curbs because, as you say, it is a tricky beast around here. And if you do hit any of those curbs, you'll be sending the car right over onto its roof.
Will indeed. And as we turn our attention to the track just now, we have the drivers just starting their first time laps. And look who's on the screen. It's Andy for Strings. And if you were paying attention or you were here for the last round of the championship, you'll know that Andy's doing pretty well now in the Drivers' Championship because he leads the way now ahead of Mariano, Santiago, his teammate, in 3rd, Valentina for Interlink France in 4th, Ian for Bundles, P5, Felipe in 6th, William for Interlink Brazil 7th, Eduardo for Interlink Argentina 8th, Arthur and Wellington at the bottom there, rounding out the top 10 in the series. All right, and heading over to the Teams Championship then, it's a similar story at the top. It's Strings that lead the way ahead of Interlink France now. A healthy lead for the Strings team ahead of Bundles, Interlink Brazil and Interlink Argentina at the bottom. So it's a tight race at the top, and it's a similarly tight race at the back of the field as well. And plenty of drama happening in both of the championships, Adam.
Yeah, plenty of drama. And interesting to note here, Interlink Argentina have a very nice opportunity to get that 4th place in the Teams Championship because there's no Interlink Brazil drivers in the server at the moment. I believe they received qualifying bans from last round, but they aren't even on the server.
Well, hopefully they join us later on. Mariano for Interlink France sets the initial pace with a 1:37.86 on his lap. Andy goes second by, quite a big margin actually, 1.3 seconds. And here come the rest of the drivers coming around for their first time laps in this session. And we expect to see 8 times in qualifying today with the Interlink Brazil drivers hopefully joining us later on. But yes, can Andy continue the winning streak that he's on, Adam? Mariano would sorely like pole position. I'm pretty sure he'd like to follow that with another race win, but we will see. At the moment, he looks on track.
Well, I mean, of course, they've only set 1 lap so far, but Santiago's a whole 1.5 behind Mariano, and Andy's, again, almost a 1.5 slower as well. So Mariano's got a decent gap there at the front, but I'm sure Andy will be setting some faster times soon enough.
Yeah, Mariano got a very nice start last week. The first clean start that he'd had in quite a number of races. He'd quite like that to happen again today, and he'd quite like it to happen from pole position. He's currently got that position, but we always know that these drivers like to set their fastest times at the end of the session when their tyres are nice and warm, and also once they've warmed up to the conditions, because of course we have a small amount of wind pushing the cars around. They're quite light cars, so the wind does have an effect. And we will see. There we go. Mariano crosses the line again. No improvement that lap. and he'll just be warming himself up to the session. Let's see, can Andy improve? No, he can't. Oh, no, he can, in fact. He went on pole
Andy
position.
does improve by 2 seconds there. It's
Yeah.
crazy. He's put it a half a second in front of Mariano. That's a very impressive time from Andy.
Yeah, nice time, and it looks like Santiago is also leading the best of the rest competition. He is third place at the moment. Valentina has not really set a representative lap time. She's in P8 at the moment. I'm sure we expect her to improve as the session wears on. But yeah, looking good for Strings right now. Current championship leaders, both in the teams and drivers' championships, of course. Oh, as Santiago, bit of a nice line into the chicane there, tagging the tyre stacks. Won't want to do that in the race, Adam.
No, definitely not. I mean, if you do manage to tag a tire stack, it sends your car around, and it has the large possibility of sending cars behind round as well as you chuck a tire stack on the racing line. So definitely something you want to avoid there.
Yeah, we're normally
Andy.
used to seeing this straight in the opposite direction. Normally it begins with this little chicane, Adam, but now it has the lap kind of ends with this chicane, which changes the dynamic of the lap slightly. And as he comes up to the final corner, normally turn 1, he's coming up behind one of the bundles cars. That's Ian. And as he heads up to start finish, this might be a compromised lap, Adam. Do you want to talk us around it?
Yeah, I will indeed. As we head over the uphill, over the start finish straight, guys are going to have to be careful to get their launch perfect, because that will be tricky uphill. Downhill braking zone, very difficult into this left-right turn 1. Andy definitely compromised by Ian there. As they make their way around turn 2, be very careful of the curb on the inside. Make sure you don't cut into that as they head under the Wayports bridge. Into turn 3 and 4. Very challenging little chicane here. Again, be very careful of the curbs, and then on the tyre stack, as you mentioned earlier, make sure you don't run wide there, as Andy makes very sure not to. Got to get a good exit out of this turn 5 onto the back straight. Got to get that perfect, as Andy has indeed done. It's a very, very long way down this back straight. It's perfect for drafting maneuvers. If someone drafts past you at the start of the straight, you can almost draft back past them by the end, especially in these slow cars. Now this braking zone into a turn in the chicane at turns 6, 7 and 8, very difficult. Make sure not to lock up any of those tires as Andy hits the curb there on the inside, but that looked fairly fast. And a tricky little dab of brakes into the hairpin at turn 9 onto the start finish straight downhill. So yeah, it's a tricky lap, surprisingly tricky, even though that there aren't many corners. You're heading into these corners very quickly with a lot of sort of elevation change, and the rears will be upset, and so will the fronts. It's a very tricky track.
Definitely is, and the nature of the back straight changes quite a lot between the forward and reverse direction of the lap. Santiago's just gone into P2. That's something we weren't expecting necessarily. That makes it a Strings 1-2 at the moment, Adam.
Yeah, I was watching Santiago in the little practice before this qualifying session, and he did look very competitive. So it'll be very interesting to see if he keeps that second place and sort of what happens in the race, because Santiago's not really used to battling up front with Andy and Mariano. So if he can sort of do that, this will be brilliant for Strings. It'll sort of consolidate their place in the top of the championship.
Yeah, well, I think this is great for Strings if they can keep it that way. I was mentioning that the back straight here in this configuration is slightly uphill, which would make any drafting maneuvers up the back straight ever so slightly more difficult, as you see Andy going over that little crest there and into the final chicane for another time. His previous lap that Adam commentated over was a little bit compromised by Ian, and again you can see how exuberant Andy is into the chicane. He really does use the weight transfer of the XFG to his advantage, and let's see if the lap he's on is an improvement. It won't be. He's going to go into the pits, and that will spell the end of his qualifying session because the clock is counting down. Santiago won't make it across the line, and neither will Mariano, or will he? Oh, it'll be close, but I don't know. Did he make it? Let's see. That looked seriously close.
I think he might have made it. I'm not entirely sure, though. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll see if he registers a split time for us on the track, but that looked close. I think he may have just made it, but we will get confirmation of that as he heads up towards the Wayports Racing League bridge here. Did he make it in time, Adam?
I don't believe he did, because that would have been the split time there, so I don't think so.
So there we are. We believe then that Mariano will have not made it to start finish before that. It was seriously close, just slightly unlucky there that the clock ran away on him. Valentina's coming up to the line. She really needs an improvement. Let's see. Best lap of 1:41.3. Will it be an improvement for her? No, it won't.
No.
So yeah, bit of a shock for her. Ian comes to the line.
Believe that Ian was the final car on track there.
Yeah, so Mariano will not have improved. He still seems to be going for it on this lap. But yeah, he didn't make it across the timing line before the clock struck 0, which means this lap that he's on will not count. We'll watch him finish it anyway. It looks pretty committed. Maybe, yeah, just a little bit of a miscalculation, but he was just seriously unlucky there. So let's get final classification of the qualifying results for round 9 of Wayports Racing League Season 2. It'll be Andy on the pole position with Santiago for strings alongside him. Then it'll be Mariano from Interlink France starting on row 2. Felipe for bundles will be alongside him in P4. Then it'll be Ian from bundles with Wellington from Interlink Argentina on row 3. Valentina for Interlink France will share row 4 with Eduardo for Interlink Argentina. And we hope to see the Interlink Brazil cars joining us for the race. And they'll be starting on row 5, Adam.
Yeah, the Interlink Brazil drivers will have to be very quick joining the servers. They've only got a few minutes to go, and they are not here yet. But definitely very, very good result for Santiago there. If he can keep that pace up into the race, Mariano will be kind of miffed there that he's had someone get in between him and Andy.
Yeah, I think Mariano will be miffed regardless at this point. He will not be happy to. I think this is probably his first second row start since the dawn of the championship, since it even began in season 1. So yeah, this will be a bit of a wake-up call for him. What does he have to do to get past these string drivers, I wonder?
Well, starting from third is totally different from starting in second, because when you're in second, you've still got clear track in front of you. But when you're in third, you can't really make the moves as easily. There's not really much space to sort of make a move on the second or first place drivers, because you've got cars in front of you. So it'll be very interesting to see how he deals with it. Also, will be very interesting to see how close the drivers behind get to Mariano, because if someone like Felipe or Ian make a move up the inside of Mariano, that could totally ruin Mariano's lap 1.
Yep, you're not wrong. Join us in a few minutes' time when we will see who will take the checkered flag first in round 9. Will it be Andy? Will it be Santiago? Or will it be Mariano? Or will it be one of the other drivers for a change? Stick with us. We'll find out in just a few moments' time. Join us after the break. Welcome back to round number 9 of Wayports Racing League Season 2. We're at Blackwood GP Reversed for the 9th round of the championship, and Andy for strings and Santiago managed to get onto the front row, leaving Mariano to pick up the pieces in third for the start of the race. Let's just quickly remind everybody about what's happening in this race. We have 14 laps of Blackwood GP Reversed in Live for Speed, 9 turns, 3.3 kilometres, 2.1 miles. Face the drivers this afternoon with a mandatory pit stop, Adam.
Yeah, mandatory pit stop again. It does manage to shake up the race a bit. Someone like Santiago has messed up the pits in the past, and in such a place as he is now, this could have a big impact on him and Mariano and Andy's race. So the pit stop, we might see some interesting stuff going on there.
Yeah, definitely. We are just a couple of moments away from the start of the race, and we will bring you live pictures of that as soon as it happens. Here we go then. Here comes the start of the race, Adam. Round number 9 on Blackwood GP Reversed.
Yeah, going to the grid. This is, as I said, it's going to be a very challenging start, this, up the hill. So Andy and Mariano are going to have to nail this start. So is, of course, Santiago.
Here come the lights. We have 3 lights on, and we are green. That was a long wait for the drivers, but here we go. Uphill start here, which is slightly different, obviously, than the other way around. And here we go. Mariano seems to get a pretty good launch, and he's going to be tucking in behind Santiago. Unfortunately, we don't have the Interlink Brazil cars on the grid, so just 8 cars for this one, but it's still going to be a thriller. Will Andy or Santiago take the lead, or will Mariano be able to get this one back? Valentina already in the wall, we're hearing. So a bad start there for the other Interlink France car.
As Andy from Strings is off the track there, exploring the grass, keeps his first position, and Mariano has not been able to challenge Santiago so far. Santiago keeping the car clean, making sure to get through these first corners very smoothly.
Yeah, but there's going to be some slipstream action surely down the back straight. Andy there, very wide again. He needs to focus up or else he's going to get taken. And Mariano is going to try and take both of them in one corner. What a move. Around the outside of Santiago and up the inside of Andy. We're going to be 3 wide almost up the back straight. But look.
Mariano pushing Santiago off onto the grass. Santiago has to get out of the throttle. Well, Mariano has just done 2 in 1. That's crazy impressive. And they don't seem to have a response in the draft.
Yeah, Mariano will be seriously satisfied by that one. And yeah, Strings will be scratching their head a little bit. How did that happen on lap 1 after such a dominant qualifying performance? Well, Mariano is exactly where he needs to be. And then behind that, all of the teams are line astern. We've got Strings in 2nd and 3rd, Bundles in 4th and 5th, and Interlink Argentina in 6th and 7th, with Mariano's teammate rounding out the back of the grid. But as we head up the hill to the start-finish line for the first time this race, it will be Interlink France leading the way with a healthy gap right now ahead of the Strings cars. Andy in P2. He'll be wanting to catch Mariano as quickly as possible. Can he do it?
Well, yeah, Mariano's have gotten away even more over that final sector. But once Andy and Santiago get a chance to settle into this race, we might see them catch back up. We'll have to see.
Yeah, this race is going to be chess. This will not be over until the final lap. We've seen these two dicing till the end in quite a lot of rounds, and as Mariano goes a little bit wide there, that allows Andy to close up through the chicane. And if Andy gets a nice apex, which he does compared to Mariano, he may be able to use the slipstream to good effect up the back straight. A decent second part of that corner for Mariano, and he is opening the gap, crucially, up this enormous back straight.
On that rear camera there, you really saw that the bumps on the exit of that turn 5. You've got to be careful, especially in this car, that you've got full grip coming out of that corner. Otherwise, the bumps will send you very wide. As well, that happened to Mariano the lap before, but he used it to his advantage.
Yeah, I think the person who will be a little bit more annoyed about how this race has started will be Santiago, as he almost runs into the back of his teammate there, getting the entry to the chicane a little bit wrong. Valentina is catching up to the back of the Interlink Argentina cars ever so slightly, but a little bit tentative. These guys, we've got Eduardo on his roof again. That has been a story of the season since the beginning, and that does allow Valentina to go through. Just a bit too much curb there for our resident stunt driver. Eduardo from Interlink Argentina.
He's managed to keep on going though, which fair enough to him. If you're going to be an experienced stunt driver, you've got to know how to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Andy runs very wide again, taking up plenty of grass. That will not mean that he's catching Mariano any quicker than he did last lap, but there we go. Mariano has opened up the gap to nearly 1.5 seconds over Andy and Santiago now.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Andy and Santiago just aren't good on cold tyres, because you saw in the qualifying session that the first couple laps from both the Strings drivers were quite a bit slower than Mariano's, and the faster times came later on. So I wonder if this will happen, if Andy and Santiago will just start to close up now, or if Mariano will continue driving away.
We've still got over 10 laps to go, but if it does finish like this, we are going to have a grandstand finish to Wayports Racing League Season 2, because round 10 will have a showdown between Mariano and Andy, and the points gap would be basically nothing. So let's see, can Andy get ahead and extend his championship lead? We will find out eventually, but right now it looks like the gap is slowly creeping up, and as Andy, again, just as we watch from the onboard cam of Santiago, gets the chicane a little bit wrong, that is just going to be playing more into the Interlink France drivers' hands as we head on to lap 4 now. Up the hill we go. Santiago really is closing up to the back of Andy as well. I wonder if team orders will come into effect here.
I'm not sure if team orders will come into effect. I'm not sure there's much point at that, but Santiago will obviously, in my opinion, if I were Santiago...
Oh, as Andy goes off,
Andy
sorry.
runs wide.
Yeah,
I was going to say, if I were Santiago, I would like to follow around behind Andy and maybe use him as a sort of banker, as someone to show me around the lap. But
yeah, Andy
if Andy's gonna keep on doing that, then maybe not so much.
Yeah, almost uncharacteristic error there from Andy, but he's been doing that on a couple of occasions. He just isn't comfortable around turn 2, and again he goes wide, so he needs to refocus, settle down, because if it stays like this, he's just going to keep losing time to Mariano. And Santiago's been put in a little bit of an awkward position here. If Andy gets close, does he give the position away, or does he keep pushing? That's something we're going to have to discuss as the race goes on. But right now, it looks like Mariano is doing everything he needs to do.
Well, yeah, no matter what, if Mariano wins this race, Andy will have to win next week to win the championship. So Andy's gonna have to really try here and not to lose too much points. I'm not sure he'll have to worry about coming fourth, but if he is third, it'll be much more of a challenge, and he'll have much more pressure on him in that final race.
Yeah, we've got battles up and down the field. The Interlink Argentina guys are in a bit of a sandwich. We've got Valentina in the middle for Interlink France. So a nice fight going on at the back.
Sorry to interrupt you, Pete. I believe that we've got an Andy from Strings going into the pit lane.
We do.
Gets that entry perfect, slowing just down for the speed limit just in time.
Oh, a little bit. He wasn't really sure which box to stop in there, and it looks like it's a longish stop. That wasn't quick for Andy's standards.
Yeah,
3.4 seconds.
That's not very good. I don't know why he's put so much fuel in the car. He obviously underfueled it. Maybe he forgot to put in more fuel after qualifying. And this puts him right out in that battle we were looking at earlier between the Interlink Argentina drivers and Valentina.
Absolutely not what you want to do. You don't want to come out in traffic, and he's come out in this rear battle. So fortunately, he's only got one car to get past. But again, it's a car that's in his way. As he runs wide again, he's going to have to try and fiddle his way past Wellington, and he needs a good exit on the back straight, because he needs to spend as little time as possible behind any traffic if he has any hope of closing the gap to Mariano. And here we go. This is a perfect demonstration of why you don't want to come out in traffic. He's been held up a little bit, and now we'll be side by side with the Interlink Argentina car all the way up the back straight. It does look like he's got a bit of pace. But let's see, will he be able to get past before the end?
Yeah, it looks like he will get that move done, if not on the straight, into that chicane. Yeah, if Andy had just started on the full fuel for the race and just made a quick stop and go with no work in the pit stop, he would have easily got out in front of Wellington and Valentina. but because he decided to take some fuel, he's ended up in this sort of sandwich as Santiago sets the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, I was just about to say, didn't really expect this today. It has to be said. 2 seconds now, the gap between Santiago and Mariano. This is interesting. If Santiago can get this job done today, that would be brilliant for Strings' team's championship.
Yeah, it wouldn't just be brilliant for Strings' championship. It would be as Eduardo and Valentina seem to have had a coming together. Valentino resets the car.
Yeah,
Looks
this
as
is
if
not.
they
Yeah, not
both
ideal.
sort of made a mistake going into the corner and just had contact on exit.
Yeah, we only caught the aftermath, but they went very sideways through the first corner, apparently. Mariano, even though he doesn't have the fastest lap, has opened the gap ever so slightly to Santiago. So Santiago, as we've seen throughout the season, he's not as consistent as the lead two, but you can tell because he's in P2 at the moment, that consistency is definitely improving for him. And going forward into future seasons, that's going to be pretty alarming for Mariano, but pretty promising for the Strings team and Santiago himself. Final corner, we will see if the gap has come down. It did come down in the previous sector, Adam.
Yeah, I think Santiago and both the Strings drivers are much faster than Mariano in that final sector. So that final sector, you really have to push the car. It's a real challenge. And maybe Mariano has just decided to take it easy through there as to not make a mistake.
Yeah, the gap came down again, 1.6 seconds now. So Santiago is just chipping away at that gap, and he needs to put as much pressure on Mariano as he can. As Mariano goes very wide through turn two, Santiago's doing a stellar job, but he really does need to close those final tenths down and get into a fight with Mariano if Andy stands any chance of getting back into this battle.
Santiago with perfect sort of four-wheel drift there through that chicane. This is very, very good driving, very competent driving from Santiago, and he's, as you say, slowly taking chips out of that gap to Mariano. Runs a bit wide onto the back straight, but that shouldn't hurt him too much. And yeah, he's also, I think the gap's opening up from him to Andy as well, so I think Santiago should easily make it out in front of Andy when he does decide to pit.
Well, Ian is now ahead of Andy, and so this is just a nightmare situation for Andy. He's come out back in traffic. It's not the strategy that Andy normally uses. He normally goes quite late in the race. He's pulling into the slipstream of Ian. That will give him a little bit of a tow up the back straight as Ian punches a hole in the air for Andy to drive into. But will he get past before the chicane? He's going to try. We know how late Andy's braking.
Will. He's looking, but that's sort of just to bait Ian into a defensive move, maybe force him into a mistake. That's a really bad line by Andy through there, and he's lost time. Ian decides to go into the pits. Obviously, he doesn't want to battle Andy, so Andy will be very pleased that he's decided to do that, but he's still lost time.
Absolutely. That was completely unforced. Just got a little bit too much lock on going into the chicane, and that just pushed the car offline. And yet more time lost for Andy. But look at the gap at the front. It's down to under a second. Santiago really is turning the screw, and this is really great. We haven't seen this sort of performance from Santiago all season long. It's been there. The pace has been there, but it's the consistency that's been lacking. But today, so far, so good for the number two, we have to say, Strings driver, currently challenging to be the number one.
Yeah, definitely. He doesn't quite have the draft yet, but he is getting very close to Mariano. If Santiago does a good sort of chicane and final corner, he could be right in the draft going down that home straight, and we could be looking at a move into turn one.
We know how strong the Strings drivers are at this final sector. You can see just from this onboard how much smoother Santiago is. Mariano goes to the pit lane, so this is great news for Santiago. He doesn't have to battle, he just has to set good lap times, and he'll do the overcut.
Yeah, of course that sort of hairpin was compromised by having Mariano right in front of him, but this was a very good middle sector by Santiago. Shame that the last sector got sort of interrupted, otherwise that would have easily been the fastest lap.
Mariano's found a pit box. It was a quick stop as well.
now we wait and see what happens between Mariano and Andy.
It's going to
Looks
be
like
miles
Mariano
ahead.
is going to have a massive gap, as you say, miles in front.
Yep, he's already at turn 1, and he's out of the pit lane and resumes the race with Andy only just going through the first corner now. So there we are. That's how much that pit stop hurt Andy and the little battles he's had. Valentina and Eduardo have gone into the pit lane together. Eduardo's just slightly ahead. These two seem to be sticking together this race, but that does mean that Santiago leads the race. And if he can put in some consistent lap times before his pit stop, Adam, he will surely come out ahead of Mariano.
Yeah, very good first split there from Santiago. So yeah, definitely a big opportunity there for Santiago. If he doesn't have to do any battling on track, that's a very well played strategy from him there. So see Valentina and Eduardo. Eduardo's fixing damage.
Yeah, you don't want to fix damage in a sprint race if it's not affecting your pace. And yet again, we see drivers who are just not using the optimum strategy here today. And that has hurt Interlink Argentina, because Valentina has managed to jump that, get that place pretty easily. Mariano resumes in P2, but when will Santiago pit? He doesn't have to. He can do it as late as he wants in this race, unless it's on the final lap. Here he comes up to the start-finish line, and I think the gap will have opened up on this lap.
Yeah, I believe so we see Andy and Felipe. Andy making a move up the inside of Felipe. Very good calculated move there, making sure Felipe ran wide, but Felipe's got the exit onto the home straight, so Andy's not quite got the move done yet.
Yeah, more work for Andy to do. His strategies hasn't worked out. He's ended up dropping himself into traffic, and the gap just keeps going up to the drivers in front. So this is horrible for Andy's championship lead. Finally managed to get round. He will go wide.
And he runs
into the grass.
wide. Andy runs wide into the barrier while trying to make a move on Felipe. Felipe decides just, he's going around the outside and he gets spooked. Yeah, Felipe just kind of giving Andy the place there, decides not to battle him too hard.
Turn 1 is the nemesis of Andy this race. Mariano's just done the best sector 1 of anyone in the race so far, which means he'll be bringing that gap down slowly to Santiago. Santiago needs an absolutely perfect pit stop, and he needs to put in some very consistent laps. I reckon the battle for this race is going to go down between Santiago and Mariano. Andy's just too far back. He's not on pace today at all.
Yeah, big shame for Andy, because he looks
Santiago's got that wrong. Sorry to interrupt. Santiago's got that very wrong into the chicane and out of the chicane. That's going to be moving Mariano closer. Sorry.
Do we think the pressure's getting to Santiago?
I think
here?
so. Slightly.
Is the chance for a win here in Wayports? Is this really gonna psych Santiago out? I'm not sure if it will, but that was definitely a slow lap. He needs to get right back on it and focus again.
Yeah, we will see. Let's see what the gap is to Mariano. Mariano will be coming across start-finish just about now, and it has. It's gone down by a second, so Santiago needs to not make any more mistakes in this race if he wants to pick up his maiden win in the championship. It would be great for him. It would be great for Strings, and it would be a little bit of damage limitation for Andy as well.
Yeah, the gap between Mariano and Andy continues to go up as Andy continues to make more mistakes. This is, I mean, we say it's going to be damage limitation, but if Andy and Felipe keep battling and something goes wrong, it could be very, very bad for the Strings championship and for Andy's championship hopes. So Andy's just got to keep it clean.
Santiago got a really nice exit onto the back straight. It looks like Mariano got a good one as well. So there really isn't much to choose between these two. I have to say that throughout the season, Mariano's pit stops have been really nice. And we haven't really seen much of Santiago's stops, or not to my knowledge. So let's watch Santiago through the chicane. Will he decide to pit this time? He has 3 laps to go.
I don't want him to pit here because, if he had not decided to go to the pit lane there, that would have been an incredibly fast lap, because his second split was a 1:06.16, which is by far the fastest second split time that we've seen. Well, he takes it very easy into the pit lane.
Yeah, he's slowed down very, very gently there. That's just not optimum. Let's see. Will he pick a pit box properly? Oh, he's had to take 2 bites of the apple. It's a quick stop though. But where is Mariano? Mariano's just coming over start finish, and he's going to be miles in the lead, I think.
This is going to be very close because there's a much tighter line in the pit lane, but Mariano's got it.
He's got it.
Mariano has the position. And I think the gap is big enough that Santiago doesn't stand a chance in catching back up.
Yeah, Mariano just did some perfect laps when he needed to. Santiago had the pace to get in front just before Mariano ducked into the pit lane. And without that other reference for Santiago, I think he's just not been able to put the laps in, Adam.
I think Santiago was just too tentative into the pit lane. He was too tentative, slowing down, took ages to slow down for the pit lane. I was on the brakes incredibly early, and then being careful not to sort of miss a pit box. As we see Wellington's on his roof.
Yeah, Ian just tagged him and absolutely just rolled him over. So one of our more experienced drivers there. That was not what we're used to seeing from Ian, but he has taken Wellington out of the race. Wellington will be able to reset his car if he can work out how to do it, and instead decides to retire from the race and rejoin. So that's bad for Interlink Argentina's points. But yeah, Ian will be apologising for that one after the race, no doubt. But we'll turn our attention back to the front because there's now a 4-second gap between Mariano and Santiago, and Mariano, after looking like he'd lost the plot in qualifying, he's managed to bring it all back, and he's leading by 4 seconds somehow.
Yeah, Santiago's still with the fastest lap time though, so that's a bonus point Mariano's missing out on. He's also missing out on the bonus point for pole, so he might not be able to retake the lead in the championship. I'll have to have another look at the points to see what will happen going into this final round.
I would suggest that Strings will still have the lead in the championship, but I wonder whether Andy and Santiago may consider switching positions at the end of the race in terms of the Drivers' Championship. But it does look like Felipe may be slowly catching up to the back of Andy again. No, sorry, Felipe's gone into the pits. So the gap between Andy and Santiago will be big enough that they would be safe to swap around if they wanted to. Not that they would. We don't really care for that in Wayports Racing League, do we, Adam?
Well, I think between Santiago and Andy, I don't think Santiago will slow down and let Andy pass, because even if Mariano takes the win here and Andy stays in third, Andy will still have to win this final race. Even if Andy came second, he would have to win the final race to guarantee the championship. So I don't think there's too much. There's not much need in team orders here.
Yeah. Every point helps, but there we go. We've got a close battle between Felipe and his more experienced teammate, Ian. That probably is going to go to the end of the race. But something that's probably signed, sealed, and delivered is Mariano, who is coming up to the start-finish line to start the final lap of round 9. He's exactly where he needs to be. He doesn't have the extra point for the pole position or fastest lap just now, but he has one more opportunity to get one of those points back. Onto the final lap he goes.
Mariano almost running wide there through the first corner, but he doesn't manage to keep it on track. Santiago is starting to set some faster times than Mariano, but of course a bit too little too late. We'll look at the gap over this first split, but I think Mariano's got this easily. Well, he's lost almost a second in that first split. So if he's not, Mariano's going very slow around this lap. Obviously, he doesn't want to make a mistake, but he doesn't want to go too slow.
No, the gap's come down to 2 seconds now. I mean, yeah, he's only got one chicane and one corner to go, but you don't want to lift off too much in case there's some drama up ahead. But anyway, regardless of what happens here, Santiago is easily my driver of the day. Much improved consistency-wise. He just needs to work on that when he's driving around on his own. When he's got no one around him, he needs to work on that consistency, and maybe he could start winning races. But anyway, as we come into the final corner, let's see if Santiago can close this gap up anymore. He has. You can see visibly Mariano's car getting bigger, but it does look like Mariano is going to take the victory as he comes around the final corner on lap 14. He's got a bit of traffic up ahead, but it won't get in his way. Already flashing the headlights. His winning drought has come to an end, and Mariano takes the win in Wayports Racing League Season 2, round number 9 in Division 1, closely followed by Santiago, who put in a really nice job to take the fastest lap, and P2 on the podium. That's his best finish.
Very, very small gap to Mariano, just over a second at the end there. So if there was another lap there, Santiago could have made a move. So definitely very well done to him.
Andy will come across the line in P3 on the road. Yeah, it's not the day that Andy kind of wanted. It started perfectly with pole position, but then went all sorts of wrong in the race, and his pit stop wasn't fantastic either. So lots of questions that Andy needs to be asking himself. It won't hurt Strings Team's championship effort too much because Valentina has had a bit of a shocker really today. Felipe finishes P4 in the end. A great finish for him with Ian, his teammate, just behind in P5. Good effort for the Bundles team. And then Valentina is going to come around to finish the race in P6, we believe. Let's see what she can manage. Yeah, not the day that Valentina would have wanted, but there we go. She comes across the line P6, some 1 minute 10 seconds behind her teammate, which is quite a big void.
Yeah, and Eduardo's going to round out the grid in P7. Well,
Not quite sure what's happening here. We've got Wellington. Yeah, there we go. He's on his way again. But yeah, he's been off on this final lap, so it's going to be.
I believe Wellington has finished. I think he decided to slow down.
Ah, yes, he just
to let Mariano pass over the line. So I'm hearing in my ear that if Andy had finished second, Mariano and Andy would be tied on points. But instead, we're going to have Mariano leading into this final round, and the gap will be 3 points between Mariano and Andy. So Andy will have to beat Mariano, and I'm not sure. Well, judging by what happened today, if Santiago gets involved, neither of them might win the final race. But Andy will have to finish in front of Mariano in this final race and will hopefully win it if he really wants to consolidate that championship victory.
Anyway, back to today's race. Mariano won in 23 minutes, 20 seconds, 0.6. Santiago in P2, a great result for him. And then Andy in P3, not where he wanted to finish, and 22 seconds back at him, thanks to that early pit stop that put him out in traffic. Felipe for Bundles finishes in a respectable P4 ahead of his teammate Ian. And then we have Valentina, Eduardo, and Wellington rounding out the grid. And it's worth mentioning that Santiago for Strings picks up that extra point for fastest lap with a 1 minute 37.4. A fantastic lap. And we hope to chat to these guys in the interview room very soon. All right, let's see who we have got. I think we've got all the drivers, Adam, waiting for a chat with us. So without any further ado, we should get them in and have a word. Let's start by talking to our championship leader. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think that would be a very good decision. Our championship leader and our race winner.
Mariano for Interlink France. You must feel pretty good about that one.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. I certainly didn't have the pace that Andy and Santiago were showing. I still don't know what happened, but I was fastest overall. I mean, I was consistent enough to finish ahead of them. That's what matters. So, yeah, pretty glad.
Yeah, awesome stuff. So it didn't start all your way. What was your thoughts at the start of the race when you started on that uphill behind two Strings drivers, row 2 at the start?
So yeah, I don't know like what happened really. I knew that I would probably, that I knew that it was not going to be comfortable for them. That they probably didn't want to battle for position, but Santiago had amazing pace. So I was preparing myself for an opportunity there, but maybe I was thinking lap 3 or something. But very quickly, I think cold tires or something. I don't know, but I had them on that straight. It was really, really cool.
That was a really nice move, yeah.
I touched some of the grass and I thought, well, I can't stop. Like this is gonna work, and yeah, it worked right between them.
Yeah, you kept your foot pinned. We were riding on board with you when you made the move. You went outside of Santiago and then cut back to the inside of Andy. Brilliant move on the back straight, getting over and done with straight away. And if our calculations are correct, that does mean that you move back into the lead of the championship, but by only a couple of points. And going into the final round, how does that make you feel?
Well, that's great. I mean, I needed to do this, right? In order to have a chance in the last round, I needed this. So I'm glad that it happened. Obviously, it's going to really come down to this last race. it's really exciting. I guess it's really cool to watch. We'll be doing our best with Valentina to try and keep those guys out of the title. But yeah, it's just I hope I can get the pace, and if I don't, then at least we have a little some points for insurance for that pole position and that fastest lap in case. Yeah.
Yeah, you briefly mentioned the teams championship, and that's a good point because Strings will open that lead up a little bit more going into the final round, and you really do need a strong result for both you and Valentina, of course, to keep the teams championship title firmly in Interlink France's court. So yeah, that could go either way. But yeah, going into the final round, you've got to admire Santiago's pace today.
Oh yeah, he improved a lot. I don't know what changed. He had this pace at the end of the season. I think obviously I don't know about the seasonality of what he does and when he prepares and what goes into that, but he's showing this pace, and we're going into a track that he loves. So yeah, that will be a tough battle.
Yeah, well, indeed. Anyway, thank you very much again for joining us, Mariano. Yeah, you're exactly where you need to be, but only by a tiny margin, a much smaller margin than we were this time last season.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Yeah, look forward to the next.
So do we. Best of luck in the final. See you there.
Thanks, bye.
Mariano for Interlink France, winning here today. Very happy, clearly. Much happier than he has been in the last few weeks, Adam.
Yeah, definitely. He had a drought of, I believe, 4 races in a row in which he didn't see the top steps. So it must be very good for him to finally get another win here.
Absolutely. Let's talk to Santiago, who finished P2 on the roster today. Santiago, congratulations.
Thank you.
So, tell us about what was happening in your mind as you were catching up to the back of Mariano before he pulled into the pits. You must have thought you had the pace to beat him today.
Yeah, I really have it. I don't know. If it had been more laps, maybe I would have won. But I think the pit stop cost you a lot of time, like 15 seconds, and also I missed the first square, so that was a very bad mistake.
Yeah, your pit stop wasn't as smooth as we've seen in previous rounds, so that did cost you a little bit of time. Did you find that it was easier to set better lap times with the kind of Mariano as your reference driving around in front?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so it seemed as though as soon as Mariano pulled into the pits, your consistency maybe went down ever so slightly, but you've got to be pleased with P2. I think it's your highest result in the season, and you walked away with the fastest lap.
Yeah, I didn't see that, so I'm very happy with my results. So also Andy did it very good.
Yeah, he had a pretty good race. It started fairly shakily, but in the end, he managed to secure the podium. Going forward into the final of Wayports Racing League Season 2, we're heading to Kyoto Ring National, which Mariano thinks is a track that you're very strong at. Are you looking forward to the final at that track?
Well, I really like it, the map. So I hope the best for Strings, for me and Andy. So I'm gonna train a lot.
Good stuff.
To be on the podium.
Yeah, you're leading. You'll be leading the team's championship going into the final, we believe, as you are at the moment. So if you continue with that streak, then it could be the trophy for that could be coming to Strings this year.
I believe.
Hopefully. Anyway, thank you, Santiago, for joining us in the commentary box again, and this time on P2.
Thank you both. See you guys.
Santiago there for Strings. Let's have a quick word with Andy. Andy, it didn't go all your way today, but still a solid podium finish, and that does move Strings, in the team's championship slightly more ahead of Interlink France. How do you feel after that one?
Hi there. I feel good because Santiago did a wonderful race. He had the pace in the qualifying and in the race too, and he pushed hard. I had to let them both go after a brilliant qualifying session. I had to admit I lost my setup, and Mariano gave me his, which we developed together, and it was a great setup for the qualifying. but I had melting rubber on the front axis, and I had to change it for the race. So I put high the tire pressures and I put them way high, and the balance was completely different. I couldn't drive this car anymore, and the temperature anyway got hot, so that the race was completely to forget. And the last lap, I was running out of fuel. I never look at the display, but at that race, I looked at it, and I had low fuel. I had to drive very slow that last lap, and I was lucky with that third place. Really, indeed.
Oh wow, okay. So yeah, not going all the way even at the end. I did wonder why the gap had gone up quite a lot at the end. It wasn't that high. So fuel again is your nemesis, it seems, in Wayports Racing League.
Absolutely. I like the track, but I don't get it how Mariano has the speed there and consistency both. I have the speed or consistency and going very slow. So congrats to both of them. They deserved it. And that third place was very close. I was running with Felipe and other drivers for laps with the same pace. That was surprising.
Well, thank you very much once again, Andy, for joining us in the commentary box. We hope to see you again at the final, of course, because it's going to be close in the Teams Championship and even closer in the teams. So we hope to see you there for the final.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Cheers, Andy. That wraps up driver interviews for today, Adam. And what a round that was. We will be back here in a week's time for the final round of Wayports Racing League Season 2 at Kyoto Ring National on July the 10th at 2 o'clock UTC. Adam, give me your final thoughts on today.
Yeah, very impressive race from Mariano. As I said, good to see him back on the top step, and even more impressive, I would say, from Santiago to get that second position and the fastest lap. Looking forward to next week. Kyoto Ring National is an awesome track, so it'll be a very nice way to round out the season.
It absolutely will. That's it for Wayports Racing League Season 2 Round 9 Division 1 from Blackwood GP Reversed. We hope you can join us next week for the finale. It's going to be a showdown between Strings and Interlink France. We can't wait, and we hope to see you there. All the best. See you later.